Okay, so hopefully you're all aware of why we've invited you along today. There have been ongoing significant changes to induction over the last couple of years, and we've had a most recent update that Hannah's going to talk to us this morning about. But we are hopefully in this session, so we promise we won't go over the hour. But we're hopefully going to share with you the changes to induction, uh, the changes for NQTs, but also for you as leaders and for those of you who've currently been induction mentors. So we're going to go through the changes for everybody and what it means in terms of your various roles and responsibilities. We want to talk to you then, just outline some of the changes around the NQT and early career offer and how that will look as we move forward into next academic year. And also just to reiterate some of the changes in funding for all those people that support NQTs, not just the NQT themselves, and so that you understand what funding is available. So at that point, Hannah, would you like to pick up from here, and I can just chip in when you need me to?
Brilliant. Thanks, Deb. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So on the slide now, you can just see kind of the process of changes that we've been through with NQT Induction. So we had some changes that came into place back in November 22. The proposed changes were consulted upon, and then they came into place then a little bit later on, and they currently stand. So they were in relation to the flexibility relating to the time period in which NQTs can complete induction. So we do have a little bit of flexibility now for those that don't quite reach that 380 session requirement. And that used to be a statutory requirement that you couldn't pass even if they were on 379. NQTs had to record 380, and there is now flexibility in the system. There's also the
Is it just me that's lost, Hannah? Oh,
yeah, I think
thanks.
I've lost her too, Deb.
Oh no,
Okay.
Sorry. I
No
can hear you
probs.
all, but you obviously can't hear me.
Yeah,
No?
you're back
Back
now. You're
now.
back in the room. Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah,
Okay.
Adele's
Apologies
face.
all. Yeah.
Adele's face said to me, "It's not just me who couldn't hear you, Hannah." So thankfully, he thought, right, okay,
Oh gosh,
take two.
apologies. I'm not
No
sure where I
probs.
got to yet. So okay.
Yeah,
So
we
on
lost
the
you at the
screen,
bit where the flexibility around the 380 session. So that's as far as we got.
okay, brilliant. Thank you, Deb. So the 5-year limit has also come into force now under the new regulations, which state that from 5 years of gaining QTS or from 5 years at the point of the new introduction of these regulations that came in, the NQTs have 5 years to complete their induction process, and they are now allowed to complete in proofs as well. So there were some changes that have been already implemented. And then we were looking now at the kind of structure of the process of induction moving forward, based on some reports by Mick Waters that have also been considered by Welsh Government and stakeholders about how we can improve the induction process moving forward. So we just wanted to give you the bit of background, really, that induction has been changing and evolving over the last few years. Some of these were consulted on, and we've already got them in place, and now the new ones that come in on top of these changes already in place. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Deb. So in terms of what's coming for September 24, these are the new changes that are coming. And what we've tried to do is give you the headlines now, and then we'll take each one of these in a little bit more detail as we go through the session today and break them down in terms of what that means for you as a school or as an IM, and for the NQTs that are going to be working within your settings. So all NQTs in Wales will now be supported by an induction mentor. You may think that, well, that's the same for us in schools, but that now includes supply teachers as well. So the NQTs, as far as they are concerned, they have one person to go to for that support throughout their induction process, and that's their induction mentor. So previously that would have been the external verifiers for supply teachers, but it will just be an induction mentor now. The role of the external verifier will no longer be present in the induction process, and this will be replaced by a similar but not the same role of a validator. So the validators will undertake that quality assurance role of the induction process, and they will sample approximately 50% of the NQTs across the region. And the idea behind the validators is that they will sample the induction process and they will work with the mentors to make sure that the induction requirements are being met and that NQT has everything they need to be successful in terms of that induction process. The deployment of the validators is at the discretion of the AB and the regional lead officers. So very much like we used to deploy the external verifiers, we will allocate them to the NQTs and to the schools across the region. The Education Workforce Council will provide funding for induction for NQTs, IMs and validators. So you can see that EV role has been removed there and the validator role has come in. And then one of the changes that will affect NQTs, induction mentors within the system, is the change from professional learning projects now. So they'll no longer be required to complete the 10 to 20 PLEs, but we're moving towards completing 2 professional inquiry projects over the course of the induction period. So this is very much in line with movements building on what's going on in initial teacher education and the role of research and inquiry within education, and looking at how we can really make this a holistic process for our NQTs that are using that research and professional dialogue with their mentor to really explore one of their development priorities and have that impact and reflection on their own practice in a very personal way to support them as they go through induction. So like I say, what we're going to try and do now is take each one of these headlines throughout the section and go in a little bit more detail about what that means for you in your setting. So as a head teacher, your role within the induction process will be to appoint a trained induction mentor. And this is really regardless of whether you have an NQT absolutely employed, ready to start in September or currently in the school, or if you don't have one, because at any point we know staffing can be very fluid, very flexible. You may have an NQT coming through your doors, either on supply or on a short-term contract, and there needs to be that ready, trained induction mentor to support them. So as a head, it's making sure you've got that person in place, you know who they are, and they've attended the relevant briefing sessions, so they're up to date in relation to the role, the responsibilities, and all the changes around induction. Ensuring that the NQTs are then receiving that regular mentoring support from that trained mentor. So there is time given to the mentor to undertake those mentoring activities and to meet regularly with the NQTs to support them with their inquiry projects and with their development priorities and lesson observations and everything else that forms part of that induction process. And then finally, ensuring that you're meeting those statutory requirements of induction in terms of allocating that additional 10% non-contact time to engage in the regional professional learning offer. And again, there is funding for this that is provided by the Education Workforce Council, and you claim that by sending off the induction notification forms at the start of employment and an induction claim form at the end of every term, or at the end of the NQT's employment if that comes before the end of term. And all those forms are sent to the EWC and can be found on the Education Workforce Council website. So in terms of your roles and responsibilities there, not a huge change, but just making sure that that mentor is identified, has attended the relevant professional learning, and that you are providing that time within your school structure to allow them to undertake those mentoring activities. Okay, thanks, Deb. So validators, these are the new role, if you like, that's been created within the induction process, and it's very much a quality assurance role. So we'll be allocating within the region a validator to work with 50% of our NQTs. We have to allocate them to 50% of the NQTs as we link the NQT profiles to the validator as the means of matching a validator to a school or setting to QA the process. But actually, the NQTs, for their time throughout induction, their main point of contact will very much be their induction mentor for support. The validator, although allocated to 50% of the NQTs, is actually there to QA the induction process itself, to work with the mentor to make sure that that they are having regular meetings with their NQTs, that they have supported with those professional inquiry projects, that they've signposted to professional learning opportunities, development priorities on the NQT's profile have been completed and reviews have been completed. So they'll very much be that QA of the process and then signposting to additional support if, for example, you had a new induction mentor that needed some development work or some signposting to professional learning themselves, or they weren't sure on perhaps, where to take the inquiry project, the validator could support that mentor to fulfill that IM role. The deployment of validators is done by the AB or the regional lead officer. So we will look at, the NQTs across our region. We will try and make sure that there's an equal spread of validators across all local authorities. And we are flexible in the approach to allocating validators. So you may be assigned a validator at the start of the term, halfway through a term, or halfway through the induction process. It's not a given that that validator will stay with you for the entirety of that NQT's induction. Because if they have QA'd the process and everything is as it should be, and there's no need for additional support or guidance, that validator may be redeployed to support elsewhere where there's a need within the local authority or within the region, okay? So that you will be notified as a head teacher if a validator has been assigned to an NQT within your school, and they will be in contact with the mentor primarily to QA the process. The validators are going to come from our region, and we are writing out and will be writing out for previous, perhaps people who have been EVs or experienced induction mentors to take on the role of validator moving forward. Again, there'll be an annual briefing session where we'll provide all the professional learning support for you to undertake the role as validator. And it will be a funded role, very much like the EV role was. It will be funded by the EWC, and that will go direct to schools, and it'll be £400 per term per NQT that has been allocated to that validator. Okay, so lots of information to take in there around that new role. The funding will be allocated termly. Like I said, you will as head teachers be informed if we are going to allocate a validator to you, but really they are working with the IM. So even though they'll be assigned to a named NQT within your school for the purposes of that 50% coverage, they will be working with the IM to quality assure the induction process. And they will be flexible, like I said, so they may come in at any point during the induction process. They may stay for varying lengths of time, depending on what they found out during their quality assurance measures. So it can be flexible in that approach. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Deb. Thank you. So in terms of the professional learning for validators, I have mentioned we'll be looking to recruit, if you like, validators from our schools that have previously been internal mentors, so induction mentors, or external verifiers. So they've got that experience of the induction process and they understand the mentoring role and all of the support that NQT is entitled to. There will be a registration form to become a validator, and we have got a link later on. So if you are an induction mentor currently or an external verifier you've been previously and you'd like to sign up to be a validator, or you've got members of staff within your school that you think this would be an appropriate role for, we can share that link with you to get them signed up. Once they're signed up, then, very much like the old EV role, we will provide a briefing session on Teams in the autumn term where we will go through the roles and expectations of the validator. And then following that attendance at that session, we would then look to allocate those NQTs to our validators in the autumn term, but that will then be flexible as the year goes on in terms of then how they are redeployed throughout the region in terms of the time they need to spend with each NQT. We're also looking to provide termly sessions for our validators to attend where I can meet with them to discuss perhaps any concerns they may have, anything they've come across during their QA visits, and we can get that feedback mechanism working in terms of that communication and support for both the validators and then who they in turn are supporting across the region with the induction mentors and NQT process. Okay, thanks, Deb. So I'm going to pause at that point, and we've put a few of these kind of pause for questions slides in, just so we can try and take your thoughts on anything that we've shared so far, any questions about what you've heard so far.
So yeah, will there be training for the IMs? Because obviously I'm now an IM for our school, I've never done it before. So is the training, will there be, is it in the autumn term?
Yes, we will be running briefing sessions in the autumn term for all IMs to attend. There's also an induction mentor development programme as well for new induction mentors that will take you through in more detail kind of each step in the process of induction support. And we've got details of that, I believe, a little bit later on as well. So you'll be able to access that.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, there's no other questions. We'll go on. Here we go, like magic, straight on to the induction mentor slide now. So in terms of the induction mentor, if you're a new induction mentor, if you've got a change in mentors, there is a responsibility for schools to provide trained induction mentors for supporting the NQT. And like I said, you will be that main point of contact now for any NQT that you're supporting. So you will set their development priorities on their induction profile. You'll support them in terms of having professional dialogue about their inquiry projects, as well as provide that sort of regular mentoring support with any questions or queries they may have while they're working within your setting. So the induction mentor will undertake lesson observations. They'll also make the recommendation at the end of the induction period to the AB about whether that NQT should pass induction, or if an extension is needed, or if you have any concerns about the progress of that NQT. So what I would suggest is, as induction mentor, as you're going through, if ever you do have any concerns, you need to raise those as early as possible in terms of progress around your NQT. So we will, of course, go through this in much more detail during the briefing sessions. But just to know, you are that person who is responsible for making that final recommendation at the end. And there will be a moderation session for you to take part in, whereby you will be able to share the induction profile of the NQT you've been supporting. And you'll also be able to then view other NQT's induction profiles to look at other examples of inquiry projects, talk to other mentors about, the type of support that they've been providing for their mentors, for their NQTs. So you'll have that opportunity to really collaborate and explore the role of mentor, as well as moderating the induction profiles. So there's a big role there really in terms of mentoring. And that's why it's really important that schools are providing time for you as mentors, and also time to allow you to access the professional learning offer that's on support for you as well. Okay. Go on to the next slide, please, Deb. Diolch. So in terms of the professional learning, so I've just alluded to it, there will be briefing sessions for induction mentors. The bulk of those will run in the autumn term so that you have everything you need to support any new NQTs coming into your setting. There's also the Induction Mentor Development Programme, which runs in addition to the briefing sessions. And we really focus here on that day-to-day kind of mentoring role that you will take on board as an induction mentor. So we'll look at key aspects of the induction process. We'll look at the inquiry projects. We'll look at how we can support you with having those professional dialogue with your NQTs, and how you can support them through, showing their progress against those standards as they move through the induction process. We'll talk about lesson observations, all the elements really of mentoring that make up that support package for that NQT. And they're all online, all of these sessions, all accessed through Teams. And then at the end of the induction process, again, there'll be that professional learning session in terms of a moderation session, where you as mentors will bring along your induction profile of the NQT you've been supporting, and we will moderate the profiles. And that'll give you a good understanding then as well, after going through all the expectations at the start of the year in terms of your role and the NQT's role, what those finished products, if you like, then look like in terms of those inquiry projects, and in terms of how you've structured your mentoring support as you've gone through the year. And I would say, if you have any queries at all, just to reiterate this, about the induction process, if you have got a validator assigned to you, if you're one of the 50%, you can go to them. If you haven't, though, if you have any burning questions, please do contact me, and I'm happy to support with anything to do with the induction process at all, be that a question from your NQT that you're not sure about, or yourselves about the induction process. So please don't hesitate to contact me at all with any questions or queries. Okay, thanks, Deb. So again, just a pause slide if you do have any questions about the induction mentor role or the validator role that we've shared with you so far. No? Okay. So if we move on, apologies, I feel like I'm talking at you a lot this morning, but hopefully you're getting lots of useful information, and it will help in the role in supporting NQTs across the region. So in terms of NQTs themselves, now you know you've appointed NQTs for September, and they're due to commence with you. There is a change in terms of the expectation. So if an NQT is starting their induction from September, they haven't already previously logged any sessions or started the induction process, they will no longer need to write between 10 and 20 PLEs to show progress against the 32 standard descriptors. They are moving towards completing 2 professional inquiry projects that will demonstrate their progress holistically against the 5 standards for teaching and leadership. So in addition to this, to build up that idea and that understanding of the progress of that NQT, the mentors will undertake 3 lesson observations. So if you've got a full-time NQT, that would be 1 lesson observation termly. To build up that picture of how you can best support them and where they're developing, and perhaps identifying any further developing needs that can be addressed then through your professional conversations and through professional learning. So you as mentors will be supporting the NQTs to write these professional inquiry projects. They should be very closely linked to their own practice, so they can reflect on that link between theory and research, and reflecting on their own practice to impact the learners that they directly work with. And it's that holistic view that we're hoping to achieve with this, and it has been shown through a pilot that was run nationally, that this has much more impact on the NQTs in terms of them identifying what their needs are, how to use the research to really support the learners within their classroom and see that impact on their own teaching moving forward, and that ultimately supports the learning within their environment as well. So it would be 2 professional inquiry projects. If they're working full time with you, we'd probably like to see, the conversations and the starting point being October for that first one. That would run possibly until after Christmas, and then starting the second one from there. But obviously, by their very nature, they're going to be very different. Some may require more time, some may be more focused, and there is nothing stopping those NQTs revisiting the first inquiry or the second inquiry, or building upon those inquiries as they move forward as well, okay? Just like we would do with any inquiry project. So that's the expectation. Again, in our briefing sessions, both for NQTs, for induction mentors, and for validators, in the autumn term, we'll be providing examples of what these inquiry projects can look like. We'll show how they've been structured, and provide you with support about how you may be best placed to support your NQTs with this moving forward. Okay, thanks, Deb. So in terms of the professional learning for NQTs, we've mentioned there's a change in terms of the professional inquiry projects. In terms of then what they can access to support them, they too will have that initial briefing session, which is national, just like you will if you're an induction mentor, if you're a validator. Then there are national NQT professional learning sessions. The first 2, so the briefing session and the session that focuses on these professional inquiry projects, are run nationally in the team space. And then the remaining national sessions are hosted by our regional partner schools. So it's a nationally agreed content, but the remaining sessions are delivered locally within regions. So ours are based within our partner schools. And then there's a network meeting to sit alongside that provides that holistic opportunity for NQTs to collaborate with their peers and explore new initiatives coming through as well. So we can support with any questions they may have about the induction process. So all of those national sessions, the first network meeting, they all take place in term 1. So we would recommend the PL offer will be out shortly. You'll be able to get the dates for those, book on, and we'll share those as soon as we have them with you. Then as we move into term 2, we progress to the regional offer, which supplements that national offer. But it's really focusing around that live practice and pedagogy element. So there's a key strand of pedagogy that runs through all of the sessions, but they'll take a slightly different lens in which they look through that. So there'll be a list of opportunities for the NQTs to attend, and they can pick one that best fits their development priorities within that area of pedagogy. That's open to early career teachers as well. So if you have early career teachers within your setting that would benefit from that, it's very much open to them because it's a wide offer. So there may be elements now that they didn't access as an NQT that actually would be really beneficial for them to come back and participate in. So that's within term 2. And then term 3 plus, really, it kind of captures that early career development, and there's that much more bespoke opportunity for them to really focus in on their PL needs in terms of what they need to develop most. There's network meetings, and they may have stepped into slightly different roles within the school, and there's network meetings bespoke for them to access as well. So we're kind of bespoking from the national to the regional pedagogy focus and elements within that, and then to that real bespoke offer to support them as they enter into their early career pathway. So that's the kind of wraparound professional learning offer from the moment they start having gained QTS into their early career. And all of that is on our PL offer. And like I said, we'll share that updated version with you shortly and make you aware of it as it becomes available. So in terms of the continuation of support, all NQTs that have started before September 24 will continue on the process that they started on. So if they've already started on supply, or they were working part-time and they started on their 10 to 20 PLEs and they're aware of the expectations, we're not going to suddenly change that and put them onto the new system. They will finish on the system they started on. The only change for them is that their EV, if they're on supply, will turn into an induction mentor. So they'll be supported by a mentor. And if they're employed in school and they've been part-time, or they've joined a little bit later and they need to complete their induction next academic year, they'll be supported by the IM in the school and not the EV coming in. But the expectations in terms of PLEs, targets, lesson observations remain the same for them. So that's the key change in terms of support. And just to make and reassure, the NQTs already in the system, that the expectations for them are not changing. And so they can continue with the induction process in which they started. Okay. Are there any questions in terms of the NQT support and changes? No, it's gone very quiet. Hopefully you can all still hear me. And we're just communicating those changes now. Okay. So in terms of funding, I'm sure this is the burning question in terms of funding coming in. The funding mechanism remains the same, so it still comes from the EWC for all aspects. It is reliant for your NQTs and your induction mentors on you sending off those induction notification forms in a timely manner, and the induction claim forms to the EWC, so exactly the same process. And for a full-time NQT, it is £900 per term, and then the IM is funded at £400 per NQT per term. And it is funded retrospectively, so it'll be funded at the end of the term. If you are then going to provide an IM to support a supply teacher, so very much like the old external mentor role, we will allocate, so you'll be able to sign up to become an induction mentor for a supply teacher, very much like you would have if you were a previous EV for one. And then you will be allocated your list of supply NQTs to mentor, and you'll be funded in the same way at £400 per NQT per term for that NQT, provided that NQT is logging sessions, and that's the important point. For supplies, the NQTs must be actively undertaking the induction process for that funding to be released. So in your workers mentoring, it's making sure that they are logging their sessions with the EWC, just like your school would have sent off a claim form if it was for an employed NQT. So it's all based around being able to show that the induction process is active and that the mentoring support is then needed for that induction process. Validators are also funded at £400 per term per NQT. And again, all of this funding will come at the end of term, direct from the EWC to the school settings. Okay. Not sure if there's any questions on that now, the funding bit. So that not a massive amount of change in terms of the funding, just the addition of the validator role replacing the EV role. Gone very quiet out there, so I'm hoping all the information is making sense and you're processing it and having time to let it sink in. Okay, Deb, I don't know if we've got another slide. Thank you. So just wanted to revisit the process of the cause for concern, because this is where the EVs previously would have stepped in and provided a support to the induction mentor, to the head teacher in terms of the process of cause for concern. So the process itself is still the same in the sense of if you have concerns around the progress of an NQT within your setting, then you need to be having that discussion with the NQT, yourselves as head teachers and IMs. And the initial instance then is to put an additional level of support in at a school level. So on the induction profile, you would already have the set development priorities, the review points that go throughout the induction process. So if that is not enough to be able to actually support that NQT to make progress, you may need to break those development priorities down into smaller, smart targets, smaller timeframes with additional support and review points built in to try and manage that progress with that NQT. I would say always best to let me know what's going on. So if you are at that point, please do feel free to drop me an email. Certainly let your validator know if you are one of those 50%, because if we're informed, we can make sure then that everything is in place and we are supporting you as a school with that school level as well, and just know what's going on with that NQT. If at the end of that school level support, there is still limited progress and you still have concerns, this is when you need to let me know. And we would make sure then that you have got a validator assigned to you to provide that additional level of support to both you as a mentor, head teacher, and to make sure the induction process is going as it should in terms of the levels of support. The next step after a school level support plan then is still the same, and it's that formal level cause for concern. So this is when we would have a formal meeting with the head teacher, the IM, the validator, the NQT. We'd go through the areas of concern. We would capture that then within a formal letter that would be given to the NQT following the initial meeting. And then we'd press that cause for concern button, which commences then the action plan and support plan that has been put in place. And regular meetings would be set then to review progress and to look at anything additional we can add to make sure that all the support is being accessed for that NQT and for yourselves as schools and mentors to try and make this a successful induction process. We can look at things like extensions, additional PL, and the validator will also step in and provide support as well to the IM at that point. So the process is similar, but it's just about making sure it is followed in that step-by-step way. So if you ever have any concerns about progress, I think, my initial response would be get in touch with us because we can talk you through this process of cause concern. Okay, thanks, Deb. So in terms of, like I said, we would share the links with you in terms of becoming either an induction mentor to support supply teachers and slightly later the validators as well. So if you are employing an NQT within a school, your process of allocating mentors is still the same, in that when you send off your induction notification form to the EWC to say that you've employed an NQT, it will ask you for the name of the induction mentor and their contact details. If you are interested in providing support to supply teachers in the role of induction mentor, so similarly to the way we use verifiers, we will need you to register your interest using the form below and then attend the briefing session for induction mentors in the autumn term, and we will allocate you then the NQTs. They can be allocated throughout the year as they join our region, but we aim to do the bulk of allocations in the autumn term. And then if NQTs join throughout any point throughout the term, we can look at allocating induction mentors to them as they join us then, very similar to the EV way in which the allocations were made then. So we would be looking to update all of our records. So if you are currently an external verifier working with supply teachers, I will be writing out to you if your supply teachers are not due to complete this academic year to see if you'd be interested in continuing, but as an induction mentor to keep that consistency of support. And we'll be updating all of our records with the EWC now as they transition from verifiers into either induction mentors and validators, or our old EVs decide not to take on either role and they can be removed from the system. So this is our opportunity to make sure all our records are up to date and you are in the correct role in terms of what you would like to do to support induction moving forward. So I would like you to ask if there is anybody that's interested in becoming an induction mentor for supply teachers to complete that form. then attend the briefing session in September, and the allocations will be made throughout the autumn term and moving forward then. Okay, thanks, Deb. Oh, sorry, I think we skipped one. There we go. And similarly, the same for validators. So similarly, we'll be, replacing our list of EVs. So if you are a current EV and you'd like to step into the role of either validator or induction mentor, we ask you to complete the relevant form. Similarly, there'll be a briefing session in September, which will go through all of the role for you, and then we'll be allocating your your NQTs then in the autumn term. But the deployment of validators is flexible, so we will be in regular communication with you about your allocations and if there is any changes to them as we go through the academic year. And again, they'll be provided those opportunities for you as validators to communicate back with us your findings in terms of the QA process, or if you require anything or any additional support for any of the NQTs you're supporting and the induction mentors throughout that process. So again, the link to the form is there for you to apply, and we'll be in touch then following the briefing sessions in September with your allocations. Okay, and I think the next slide was the question slide again. So are there any questions about everything we've shared with you so far in terms of those changes? You can see our contact details on there. Please do stay in touch if you have any queries at all about the induction process. We're happy to support as we enter these changes and support you through the new process. All silent my end. Deb, I don't know if you can see anything in the chat or any questions. Oh, hello.
Sorry, I was just wondering, is it still all on PebblePad?
Yes.
Will they be uploading professional inquiries to PebblePad?
Yes, they will. So we'll go through that in the briefing sessions in terms of the format, because there's a lot more flexibility now in terms of how the NQTs present their inquiry projects. But it will all still be driven through the PebblePad, so that their induction profile is there and up to date for everyone to view. So validators, induction mentors, and myself and the NQT, we can all see the most up to date kind of in terms of progress, development priorities, reviews, lesson observations. Everything is still driven through that induction profile.
Brilliant, fab. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Well, thanks, Hannah. Lots of changes and lots of information, I know. So we'll make sure that we send everyone out the recording as well as the PowerPoint presentations. And if you can just help spread the message, we've got a number of sessions running this week. We've obviously tried to do them for each local authority, but that doesn't stop people joining whichever is most convenient, really, because the messages are the same. However, the offer and the support is to you individually, no matter where you are. So please get in touch, as Hannah said, if you've got any further questions or queries, and hopefully then we'll move into a smooth transition next year. And a big thanks to Hannah for all the information she shared today. So lovely, thanks for joining us. We do appreciate it, and we'll make sure that you get copies of everything that we've shared today. So diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thanks very much.
Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. Thanks, Deb. Good to see you all.
Yeah, take care.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.